All right. We'll just start off general feelings on how the draft went. If you want to go into specifics as well.
Yeah, I think, this year's draft you actually have to start going back 2 years. And the year that the draft changed a bit and our philosophy was probably we're one of the first clubs to maybe adapt our philosophy to the new rules of the draft, where by drafting underclassmen, we get to create a separate program that's a draft and follow program. And, I think because of the work that our guys did, both 2 years ago and leading into last year's draft, we had 3 players in the current college class that we feel like would have probably been top 10 picks coming into this draft. So when you look at Donovan Phillip, Palmer Alt, F.A. Aurora, guys that really excelled in the college game, those are guys that we already had control over. And of course, Matthew Van Horn, who is at Georgetown, who had an injury this year, but is a high performer as well. So we had that as a baseline coming into that, and that certainly shapes the way we look at this year's draft as well. So, coming into today, I think our ability to roll over a massive group of freshmen that were sophomores that were freshmen last year that we identified early on in the process, and then really refine what we were looking at through this fall, it gave us a pretty clear idea of what was available to us. Because as this process goes, where underclassmen are able to be drafted, the older group is going to be kind of picked over, and so we have to be really good at that at the younger groups and the sophomores that are just becoming eligible. And I think I'm really, really proud of the work that our staff, our scouts put in a ton of time, and specifically guys like Brendan Steinecker and Andy Butler. It really spent hours digging through that and making sure that we had a good baseline of information to start. And then it was a big club effort in the way we've gone about it. And we've had individuals from different staffs and the academy in our front office all the way around that have contributed to this. So that all comes together, with the combine and then a kind of a week of meetings that refine what we want. And I think we had a draft board that we liked. And at the end of the day, it was pretty straightforward in how we were going to approach the day.
Mamadou Bilo Diop was an eligible player for this draft, despite being a contracted player for Rapids 2. Kind of just explain that situation there, and describe the importance level of bringing him back to the club and how big of a priority it was to get him back.
Yeah, if I could fully explain it, I would. But I think we're in a situation where the mechanism we brought the player into our club on, the precedent that was set prior to us bringing the player into the club, that philosophy at the league level seems to have changed, and we were informed that we would need to put Bilo into the draft. And the environment changes, and in the end, that was the call the referee made, and we have to live with the referee's call, right? So our job then becomes to secure what we felt is a top priority asset for us. We worked on Bilo for a long time before he joined the Rapids 2. He came in, he met the expectations of us as we looked at him and his performance in Rapids 2. And in the end, we were going to do what it took to secure the long-term future of him with our club, and that became using our number 6 draft pick on him, and in the end, we got a great asset out of the draft that we already had.
And then kind of just describe the process going into the draft, all the hours and work put in at the combine here in Colorado. Just how much work goes into a day like today, and anything you'd like to point out there.
Yeah, it is. I think I referenced it earlier. It's a ton of work, and it's especially on our scouting department. And we start with a list of players that we've been following over the long term. And again, a lot of those players now are younger in the process, and they may have only had one season, so really 3 months of college soccer when they get on our list. And then they roll into their sophomore year, and it becomes, a good opportunity for us to follow up on all those. So the process starts, I guess, in earnest with that group in the summer, and we're starting to assign, look at players, and start to write reports, get stuff into our system. We've got a system that our analytics guys have built that is fantastic, where we can put this information and track players all the way along the process. And then as we get into the fall and we start looking at probably higher asset value targets, then we're on the road and out, and our scouting staff, our technical committee, everybody's out and watching games live. Once we get to a place where we have specific targets, then obviously there's some bigger events that become, conference tournaments and NCAA tournaments that give us a chance to watch multiple top teams at the same time. And then that culminates at the same time as the Final Four with the college showcase that MLS puts on, and expands that group of players that we get to see in person. And we take a big group to that so that we can not only get eyes on that, but also, spend time together, meet, understand exactly what we're looking for, and make sure that we're synced up philosophically. Come back in this week, and our scouting guys are up 24 hours a day putting together those last videos, and we're reordering draft boards multiple times a day, every day as we come into the process. And I'll be honest with you, we left the building yesterday with a pretty good, calm sense to where we were, and we walked in this morning, made a few tweaks to what we wanted to do, put some contingency plans in. If this happens, then we do this, to make sure that we kind of run through some scenarios. And then, quite frankly, I sit on the table and talk to MLS when we're making selections, and it was really calm. It's an easy process when all that work's been done, and we've got it documented and it's right in front of our faces. So it's a long process. It's a lot of work, and some guys really put in the hours to make it successful. And I think our success over the last few drafts probably tell us that our process is headed in the right direction.
And then we have a question from Matt Pollard with Burgundy Wave. The club selected 3 forwards in the first round. Was this just a matter of taking the best player available who was on the board at that time?
Yeah, one of those forwards is one of our own players, so I think that was a big time move just to secure an asset we already had. When you look at the other 2 guys that we selected in that round, both of them are sophomores in college, and both of them we saw live this year and felt like they have a ton of upside. We also don't believe that we have to be in a massive hurry. So when you think about creating pathways for players and ensuring that they're going to get time at the appropriate level at the appropriate time, we think that we can map that out with these guys. And some might stay in school, some might come out, and we don't really see that we've created a log jam there. We actually think that we've secured best available talent, that it could be MLS players in the future that we now will get into the hard work of mapping out their futures, working with them, working with their current schools, and making sure that we continue on the right pathway with it. And again, we've seen that happen with the guys that are currently in the process in college, and we've been really happy with the results there.
And then after Belo, it was 4 sophomores that were taken. Is there a trend there, whether it was not liking the senior talent or drafting guys who you think will be more developed in a few years?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a trend. We are looking at guys. Again, we feel like our system. We've had a lot of draft picks in the last couple of years, and we feel like our system is starting to get really populated with that talent. So it helps us with the process by being able to identify sophomores that, again, we can maybe create an alternative pathway if they need to stay in school. In some cases, they might be working on a very specific degree that they want to stay in their particular institution with. There's a lot of factors that go into that, where we can, from a very pure soccer standpoint, create a clear pathway, but it can be unique to each one of those individuals. So the sophomores give us a lot more play with what we can do there and how we can ensure that the pathway flows without blocking one specific pathway for a specific player. And as all these draft picks mature and become players that we want to bring into the system, we can kind of avoid the log jams there. And the second part of that answer is probably that obviously with homegrown players and with the players that have been picked over the last 2 years that were draft eligible and still in school, there's going to be a pretty natural progression to some of the younger players being the bigger targets in these drafts.